woke up this morning. Well, I don't normally do this, but I just felt compelled to do this here. I don't usually use a scripture right away. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, it says that God has placed eternity in every man's heart, every person's heart. God has placed eternity. Now, from where I come from, a lot of people just think when you're dead, you're dead. That's the end of it. But I want to be able to tell you, it's all about location, location, location. Because we're all going to spend eternity someplace. But for us, and all of us that I believe that are in Christ Jesus, we know where our destination is finally going to be. So I'm going to share about how God can rescue, redeem, and restore anyone's life. No one is beyond. It was not planned. The grasp of God, no one. So if you have children or grandchildren or whatever it might be in your family that you're saying, well, man, there's no hope for that person. I was that person. I'm here to tell you that God can rescue, redeem, and restore anybody's life if we have to surrender it to Him. So, as you know, my name is Robert Borelli. And I'm guessing by now you know I'm not from Texas. I believe, a side joke, that God brought me to Texas to teach you people how to speak proper English. Maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, back at home, I was raised in Brooklyn, New York. It's a pretty tough neighborhood, mob-related neighborhood. You go back into the early 1900s, the mob had control over my neighborhood. There was movies made, Murder Incorporated. A lot of gangster movies was made in my neighborhood. I grew up in that lifestyle, not my family, but in that setting that was around me. Watching those kind of movies, I was very impressed with some of those people. Their families still lived in my neighborhood, even from the old 1900s. So I grew up in that concept. But my neighborhood, now I didn't know, I'm just speaking on my behalf, about races. I just was taught that you stood with your own kind. So if you were Italian, you stood with Italians. If you were Irish, you hung out with Irish, so forth and so on. So my neighborhood was diverse with different types of settings. And so if you went into one person's neighborhood where you really didn't belong, you're going to have trouble. So two things I learned real quick. You have to learn how to fight real good. And then you also have to learn how to run real fast, just in case you're losing a fight. So those are things that were pretty common from when I was growing up. Now I can say that I have three types of people in my lifestyle growing up. And of course it was my mom and dad, my family. My mom and dad were hard workers, had 5 children. It was really a hard time making ends meet. My neighborhood was a poor neighborhood. We didn't have much of everything. We had a lot of love in the home, but there was a lot of things that we couldn't have. So when there were certain arguments in my home with my mom and dad, most of the time it was about finances. Either we couldn't buy the kids shoes or whatever it is, so numerous different things that arose to the occasion that would cause some trouble. Well, I wouldn't say trouble, but some disagreements in my home. So at an early age, I really didn't want to grow up to be like my mom or my dad. I would not have wanted that for my children or for me myself to have those kind of struggles. And then you had guys that were a little bit older than me just coming back from the Vietnam War. And a lot of them were either messed up with drinking or with drugs and stuff like that. So when they came back, they were pretty messed up. They were really good friends of mine, the older guys that I looked up to, but now I'm not looking up to them because I don't want to be like them neither. And then down the block, you had the guys that hung out in social clubs. These are the guys I didn't know at that time, or guys involved with organized crime. But they seem to get all the respect from everybody in the neighborhood. They protected the neighborhood. If any trouble, matter of fact, I could even remember cops going to these guys, asking them for help if there was a burglary or something that happened in the neighborhood. That's just how it was. So they had money, they had nice clothes, they had all the things that I didn't have at my home that I wish I did have, you know. So I gravitated towards that. Now, since I was one of those little rough, tough kids, because I was the type of kid that really we didn't use the word bullied. I didn't hear that until later on in life, but you didn't want to get picked on. That's how we did. This guy keeps picking on me, you know? And so I would do whatever it took to make sure that those people wouldn't want to pick on me. So I was small, a little bit shorter than what I am now. A lot shorter than I am now, to be honest with you. I grew up slow. But anyway, so I would do whatever it took. So if they were picking on me, I'd pick up a stick, a bottle, garbage can cover, whatever it took to fight them off. This way they won't want to mess with me. That's just how I started growing up. Now I went to Catholic school. So I grew up Catholic. And my school was in a black neighborhood, an Hispanic neighborhood, and the public school was right behind my house. So we would cross each other. The blacks and Hispanics mostly went to the public school. I mean, there was some that went to Catholic school, but a lot of them went to public school, and I was going to Catholic school. We had to cross each other's paths. And there was a thing we used to call the punk test. And the punk test was if I'm walking this way and somebody else is walking this way, the punk would be whoever moved out of the way would be the punk. Yeah, it sounds stupid, but it was pretty brave at that time. But anyway, so most of the time, nobody wanted to move out of the way, so it started trouble, and you usually have a fight. So I mean, fighting was part of my neighborhood. Fighting was the way I grew up. And then I started hanging out with these guys. They liked me. I was a little bit of that tough kid, so they would let me come in to the social club, shoot pool with them, maybe run an errand, go to a store, something like that. I mean, this might be over everybody else knowledge, but the first test I got was they gave me 25 cents. They said there was a store right next to the club. They said, go in there and get me a bucket of steam. I didn't know you can't buy a bucket of steam. So I went in the store for 25 cents, asked for a bucket of steam. It was an old Italian guy that you didn't really want to mess with. And boy, oh boy, did I get chased out. I don't remember if they let me keep the quarter or not. Probably not. I don't know with them guys now. But anyway, but that was it. So that was like kind of initiation to get into them. And then they would send me on errands and do other things with them. So I gravitated to that lifestyle very fast. And as I started hanging out with them, there's a couple of more things they give me to do. Now, numbers and bookmaking was a pretty big thing in those days. Now you can see the state took it over. They knew there was a lot of money in it. So I would run, and then people would pick up policy slips with a number. My mom used to give me 60 cents and play a number, 10 cents on whichever way it came out. And that's just what it was. When I pick up a horse bet, people couldn't make it to the track, so they would bet horses with these bookmakers and stuff. And I kind of did that for a while. But as I got older, they gave me more stuff to do. And at the age of 17 years, I started hanging out. I left Brooklyn and started hanging out in Queens. And one of the big bosses of the neighborhood, his son happened to be one of my friends. I ended up being introduced to him and started hanging out with him. And then at the age of 17 years old, since I was close to him, his father would have a big spread where all these mob guys would come in. It would be a big meal. It was either in the back of a bar or in a hotel or something like that. And he would bring me with him. And here I am, a 17-year-old kid, hanging out with all these big mob guys. Ton of money, fancy clothes, nice cars, everything that I would have wanted for myself. So I really got plugged in. And when I seen his father get all the respect from all these guys, I was very impressed with it. And in my head, I'm saying that's what I want for my life. I want to be that guy that gets all the respect from everybody. And of course, there was envelopes involved with it too, which meant money. It wasn't a blank envelope, trust me on that. But anyway, an empty envelope, I should say. So that's kind of like how I started hanging out. So when me and him, we were with a couple of guys, we were going, we started hanging out with bars. Now, for me, my reputation was a big thing. You know, I always wanted to have the reputation that people were to fear me and respect me, even at the age of 17, 18 years old. So we hung out in bars and we drank, and of course a lot of times there would be fights in there, so I was building a reputation for myself. And at the age of 18, there was one time a fight and somebody got killed. And me and a friend of mine was wanted for the killing. And my friend's dad hid us out from the cops for about a year and a half. So this way we didn't get caught for that murder case. At the age of 20, I started coming back into the neighborhood. And my first arrest as an adult, I got arrested a couple of times as a kid, but in them days, they just put you to the precinct and your mom and dad picked you up and took you back home. But as an adult, at 20 years old, I got arrested. My first arrest was for 2 murders and possession of a weapon. And I went to court one day for possession of a weapon and then got bum rushed by a whole bunch of detectives while I was in the courthouse. And locked me up for 2 more murders on top of that gun case. And I had to lay up in jail. So I was taught all the things of the street from the mob guys who taught me, keep your mouth shut, you did your time, don't worry about it, we'll help you as much as we can help you. And I really depended on that. So I had to lay up for a couple of months before I finally went in front of a judge that would give me a bail, and then these guys helped bail me out. But when I got bailed out, because I was so young, and because of the cases were so severe, and because I did everything that they taught me to do, was keeping my mouth shut and doing the right thing, laying up, not talking to police, not doing any of that stuff, which we would say today ratting or tattletaling or whatever way you want to put it. And they were very impressed with this, so they started bringing me around to Mulberry Street and trying to introduce me to the up-and-coming star they gave me, no crime family. A couple of years later, I have to go on trial for one of these murder cases, and there's 5 eyewitnesses against me. I'm getting remanded now. I was out on bail, but I'm getting remanded for the trial. But I ended up getting acquitted of that trial. And that was kind of like, I would say, was the boost of everybody. Because everybody in Mulberry Street, all these big bosses from other families, knew my name, knew my situation. And they said, wow, that kid, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say the term that I know how to say. He had a lot of guts. Okay. And they were bringing me around, and I got this big reputation. The problem with that is they put expectations on me that now I have to live up to. Because now I'm this big up-and-coming, 20 years old. Well, at that time I was about 22, 23 years old. And everything that the expectation that I felt I had to live up to. So I never really had my own, really, of what I thought of me was what everybody else thought of me, and that's how I was going to live my life. So I lived that life for a long period of time. I was one of those guys, and listen, don't misunderstand me. I am not no way glorifying my past in any way, shape, or form, because you hear the rest of the story where it brought me. So at that time, I'm working on Mulberry Street, a big dice game that they have, which of course in New York was illegal. We had it in the back of a factory or something. And this one guy, I remember, came in with a stack full of hundreds. And he loses it in probably about 15, 20 minutes. And I was a bad gambler. And if I lost a couple of dollars, I was pretty upset. And this guy showed nothing on his face. Wasn't upset, didn't look like it bothered him. Now, it might have inside, but he didn't show it. And I was very impressed with that. So what he does, after he loses all his money, he asks one of the guys that ran the game if he could give me his keys to his car, and in the back seat there's a brown paper bag for me to get it and bring it into him. And they said, yeah, give him the keys. So he gives me the keys. It's a brand new, spanking, beautiful Jaguar. And I go in, I get the bag, and I don't look in it because I'm not supposed to. I get the bag, I bring, there's just more money. Now, I don't remember if he got the money, he won it back, if he lost it. I really don't remember that. But I do remember I was very impressed with this guy. And I asked the guys after the game stopped, I said, went to my little boss and said, what does this guy do that he can lose that kind of money and doesn't even bother him? And they said, he's the biggest drug dealer in Harlem. My mind, and I know that through living that lifestyle, if you have a lot of money, you have a lot of friends. And if you don't have a lot of people around you, then you have a bigger reputation, a bigger, I guess, crew, so to speak. And that's kind of what I wanted, so I got involved with the drug business. I was probably about 28 years old at the time, and I started selling coke. And then the coke started selling me, in a sense, because I got addicted to snorting cocaine. I was pretty casual back in them days. I don't know if you remember about 1977, 1970. I know some of you don't have no clue what that looked like. I understand that, but some of you don't remember. Richard Pryor had an accident in Hollywood, freebasing cocaine, and went on fire. It was a big thing, and it hit my neighborhood, and so freebasing cocaine became the big thing. I tried freebasing because I was getting really bad snorting cocaine, staying up for days at a time, and I did it, and I liked it, and it was like really didn't make me want more. After I did a little bit, I go home, go to sleep, and I thought, okay, this is better off than snorting coke, and I got involved with that, and then before you know it, I started losing everything. The thing that I thought was going to calm me down a little bit ended up taking more possession of me. So like I say it this way, is I sold drugs, and then after a while the drugs started selling me because I started losing everything that I possibly can lose. 1993, I was in a rehab. My life was falling apart, and went into a rehab center, and my girlfriend at that time was pregnant with my daughter, and when I was in rehab, she's going to give birth, and I asked them to let me out. And of course, it was all connected people, and even in rehabs, we had friends there that helped us out and stuff. And they let me out to be there for the birth of my daughter. And on my daughter, I was there for when she came out. And I cried like a baby. Now, tough guys are not supposed to cry. And I cried like a baby. I broke down, just cried. And I really believe that this little girl is going to give me something to love other than myself, and give me a responsibility other than just doing what I wanted to do. I thought it was going to change my life. I really did. And I didn't want to change what I was doing as far as mob related. I just wanted the consequences to change. There's a big difference in that. So she was born, and of course we brought her home, and then I'm cleaned up and doing okay, and I get a construction job. People that we know put me on. It's kind of like a job all you have to do is show up and you get paid for it. I really didn't have to do a lot of work. It was mob related. And I did that. Then 7 weeks after my daughter's home, I have an argument with her mother. It was probably about finances, or I was either gambling, losing the money, or something like that. And I just thought that I'm going to go out. I'll be back in the morning. And I thought I'd go to my crack cocaine friend's house that sold crack cocaine. And I thought I would come back, and there's an old saying in NA and AA, when there's too many thousands, never enough, and that's kind of like how my life lived after that there. I never went back home. The mom, my daughter's mother, thought it was better off, the lifestyle that I was living. Make a long story short, man. I was completely homeless, helpless and homeless. Crack cocaine took everything from me. I had nothing. The wise guys seen that I was really messed up pretty bad. They gave me kind of an offer I didn't refuse. They said, go, my mom was living in Florida at that time. Here's a plane ticket, go. Your mother in Florida. I knew what they meant, that I needed to get out of the neighborhood. I was a big embarrassment to them and everybody else in my life. So I did that, and I stood there, and then the guys came to Florida, and they found out I was doing good, and they gave me some position in the mob in Florida, and before you know it, I did that, and before you know it, I'm back on crack cocaine. Long story short, 1996, I was supposed to go to a rehab, back in the rehab in New York, and we had, like I said, we had connections there, and flew back to New York from Florida, and instead of being the person I was supposed to take me to the rehab, I met a friend to take me to another crack house. In 1996, I lived completely homeless. No place to live, out in the streets. A big disgrace to everybody around me. You know, one of the biggest lies that the devil was telling me at that point in time, even though I didn't know I had a relationship with the devil, just my lifestyle was kind of pointed to that, is that you're only hurting yourself and you're not hurting anybody else. It's the biggest lie he could tell us, because I'm destroying everybody around me. So I do that there, and I I get locked up for selling crack cocaine to an undercover agent while I was homeless, and the guys bailed me out. They took me back around, and then I was still strung out on drugs. And then when I was in Florida, a case happened in Florida, so I'm wanted by the FBI, and I didn't go back to court for the state case because the feds were looking for me. Long story short, my life was completely messed up. I finally passed out at somebody's house after being up for a couple of weeks, and I get a tap on the foot. And I like to call these guys my two angels, but they didn't have halos, they had weapons on them. They were warrant officers, and they locked me up. The reason why I call them my angels, because on January 23rd, when that happened, 1997, was the last time I had a drink or a drug. So I see them as my angels today. God somehow put them in my life to intervene and get my attention. So now I'm in Rikers Island, and I know what I'm supposed to do. I have to get a good attorney to get myself out of the mess I got myself into. That worked pretty good for me. And then I got to get commissary money so I can live as comfortable as I can while I'm incarcerated. I know I'm not getting bailed anymore. And I start calling up everybody. I'm getting brushed off by nobody wanted to help me. My daughter's mother was allowing me to talk to my daughter over the phone. And this one time I'm talking to my daughter and she's crying. And I said, Brianna, why are you crying? She said, because you won't come and see me. There's no bars to run to, no alcohol, no drugs at that point in time. And my heart just shattered. Like I said, I was raised Roman Catholic, so I knew about God. I don't say all Catholics are like that, just this one. I knew about God, but I didn't know God. So I don't want the inmates to see me. I started crying like a baby, slammed down the phone, ran back to my cell, and I just said, God, if you're real, either have somebody kill me, because death seemed the better option for me than living the life that I was living at that point in time, or change it, because I can't live like that. I just didn't want to live. The pain was so great. I didn't want to live like this anymore. And I believe God sincerely answered the cries of my heart at that point in time, because at that point in time, something happened. I can't tell you exactly what happened, but my life started changing. I remember one time I called up this girl looking for commissary money, an attorney. She said, go read the Bible. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to find an attorney in the Bible. I thought it was a brush off, but I remember what she said, and I picked up the Bible and started reading it. Now, while I'm incarcerated, I like to read Robert Ludlum books, the espionage books. It keeps me occupied in my time instead of getting in trouble, on the floors and in prison while I was living there at that point in time. And I just felt something inside me saying, you need less of those books and more of this book. And I just started reading my Bible. Now, the FBI was bothering my mom a little bit, so I called up my mom. She said, this FBI agent keeps coming and bothering me. And I said, give me his phone number. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, don't worry about it. So I called up the FBI agent. He gives me an offer I didn't refuse. He said, if you cooperate with us and be willing to testify and give us all the information about all your life in the mob, we'll recommend you go into the witness protection program, and you could start your new life. And at that point in time, it seemed like the best option I ever had in my life, because I knew I was never going to be the gangster anymore. I really felt I was Robert the crackhead. This is how I'm going to die, as Robert the crackhead. And I seen hope in that day. I'm not saying I found Jesus at that point in time, but I think that prayer somehow was working in my life. God changed my life. So I got involved with the witness protection program. I told them I would help them out and all that. So I had to do time, and I was eventually brought to Florida and had some time. Now you think you have Jesus in your life, you have the government helping you out. It's going to get a little bit easier in your jail time, and it didn't happen that way. I was placed in solitary confinement. I was out 1 hour a day for a couple of months, and then the mob found out exactly what jail I was in, and the feds thought they needed to move me. And I go, and I'm just going to tell you this here because it shows you how the Spirit of God was working in my life, even though I didn't see it at that point in time. Because every place they were bringing me, there was more Bible studies. In September 9th, 1997, I'm in Indian River County Jail, and they're going to have this big baptism going on. I'm going to the Bible studies. It was 2 times a week. They're going to have this thing, and they said, okay, we can baptize just 6 of you. That's the amount we can do in one setting. So sign up. I signed up. I was the 8th person. I didn't think I was going to have 2 people end up either leaving or something happened to them. I was the 6th person that got baptized in Indian River County Jail. But I have to tell you the truth, they didn't need the water. I was crying so much. At that point in time, they could have dipped me in my tears and raised me up out of my tears. They didn't need the water, but then I got baptized there. I won't tell you that water saved me. I believe I was saved before the water came, the baptism came. But I just wanted to follow Jesus' footsteps for everything I was reading in the Bible. Then I got placed to Sandstone, Minnesota, which is a really a rough place to be. It's in a WITSEC program where only people who are cooperating with the government are in this facility, and you don't even get a name, you just get a number, and that's how I was living. So after my time was up, I remember 60 days before I was getting released, I remember one guy that was said to me when I was in Sandstone, Minnesota, this is just a religious thing, but you're incarcerated. Wait till you get out in the streets, you're going to be the same person you were. They didn't see it, and I didn't understand it fully, how the born-again experience starts in your life. And therefore, I would take the Bible that I was reading every day, I would place it on the floor, and I would lay in it for 60 days. I would put my head in it and say, God, let your word penetrate my mind, that I never forget it. Then I would move up and I put my heart in there, and I said, God, let your word fill my heart, that I would live by it. Nothing, I'm not saying that. I think just the fact that God was answering the sincerity of the cry of my heart, not that this was actually a magical thing that happened, but I think that. So now I finished my time, the marshals picked me up, and I just want to share this here, and then I'm going to just tell you a little bit more about our ministry, because I know I'm running out of time. Get shipped to this place. I don't even know where it is. It's just a building. They put me in this room. It's part of me going into the witness protection program. And you have to they said you can keep your first name, but you have to give your last name. And I happen to be giving them a couple of names. They come, that's no good. I don't know how they do all this stuff, to be honest with you. And then I happen to be watching a show called MASH. And there's this Dr. Borelli. One of these guys that's on the show, and they come in and they say Borelli, and they say, came back and they say, okay, that's your name. My only regret, I should have said Dr. Borelli. Maybe I could came out with a PhD. But anyway, so I did that, and this was the most important of my testimony for me, and hopefully, because God showed me what it is to really be born again. You see, because what the government does, they give you a new name. They give you a new identity. When I went into that building, they take everything from my past. I can't even take a picture of anybody in my family. Nothing from my past. They take it all from me. I just have the clothes on my back. So you can't take nothing from your past with you. So they give you new social security number, they give you new everything. I believe, I'm not sure of this here, but they even change your fingerprints so you could never be found. And I relate that there, how the government changed me, my new identity, being a new person. How they did that there. I see that's what God did in my life. He took away my past. I have no record. If you look up my name today, my social security number, you'll find nothing from my past from 1999. So what God did was wipe my slate clean, no record, no nothing. All my sins are forgiven. He's given me a new identity in Christ Jesus. I'm now a born-again Christian. So he showed me that in a picture that really touches my heart, because I know who I am today. I know what the call that God has in my life. I know that I've been born again. The Spirit of God lives inside of me, because he's changed my heart. He's given me a new heart. So now I get released, and my mom is I'm living. They brought me to a foreign land, San Antonio, Texas. So I'm there, and my mom is really sick, dying of cancer, and I didn't know my mom had passed away until 3 days after she had passed away. And because I was in the witness protection program, I couldn't even go to her funeral or nothing. Nobody could know where I am, so nobody had a way of getting in touch with me. Everything they had to do was to the marshals. That's the only way anybody could even speak with me or me talk with them, including the FBI and anybody else. And I was really disappointed because, you know, for me, I put my mom through murder trials. I put my mom through so much, like drug addiction, everything in my life. I put her through so much, and I felt that this new love that God gave me, this new agape love that I never experienced before in my life until He put it in there. And I wanted to give it to my mom. She deserved that thing more than anybody in my life, and now she's not there. And I was crying, and I cried for about 11, 12 days straight. I couldn't stop crying, whether I was showering, eating, or anything. It was just really a lot of pain in my life. I was lonely all by myself. And I felt God telling me, now my church I was involved with at that time was doing nursing home ministry. And I felt God was telling me I need to get involved in nursing home ministry. And since I was a little upset, I felt God was telling me that love that you want to give your mom, you give to everybody else. So I started doing nursing home ministry. I was there twice a week, every week. I got married to this beautiful young woman here who God has a great sense of humor. I'll tell you a quick story about that. She was in New York praying for somebody 6'2". I was praying for somebody a little bit shorter. She's 5'11", I'm 5'6". God has a sense, and they call us the couple. They say like this, that's the couple. But anyway, and she started helping me. Now everybody found out where I was. I don't know how they did it through my marriage with her. And called up the marshals, and I said, hey, you know, people found out where I am. They said, okay, you're out of the program. Hung up the phone on me. And that was it. Now I'm on my own. And my wife said, now you go out and start sharing your testimony. So that's what I do today. Sharing how God has changed and transformed my life. I wouldn't have done it in the beginning because I would have been afraid for people coming back to hurt me and hurt my life. But she gave me the encouragement to start speaking about. So that's what we do today, is we go around and share how God can transform anyone's life, no matter where you're at. It's never, never, never too late for a new beginning. Never. And I know we're a little bit older here, and maybe our children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren are going through something, that please don't give up on them, because it's never too late for a new beginning for them, and even a new beginning for you. Don't see them as hopeless people. See them right now as maybe a little bit helpless. But let's bring a message of hope, and that's what I try to do. So we got a chance to write a book. Now, I didn't write the book because I can't even write my name. But there's books there, they're for donations only. All that goes into the ministry, so we keep doing the things that we do. I go into schools and I speak whenever I get a chance to do that, in churches, men's groups, rehab centers, celebrate recoveries, any place that God opens up the door. I want to give and share a message of hope. This is not my story, this is God's story. How God can change anyone's life. All we have to do is really give it to Him. So as you can see, right now we're on social media. It's something I didn't want to do, but people are telling me, you want to reach young people, they're not coming into churches, they're not watching TV shows. You need to reach them where they're at, and most young people today, and some of you are a little bit younger, and know that the phone is the big thing, and they do YouTube and TikTok and all these other things. So we decided to start doing that, and I'm telling you, we're reaching so many more people. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Rob, you're here. I think over 3 million people with the YouTube channel that we have touched, and we've been doing it for 6 months. We also have 6,100 people that subscribe to our YouTube channel to hear stories. Some of them are mob stories. We're just trying to get them interested in our channel, so this way we can minister them little by little, catch them where they are, and show them how God can change someone's life by sharing my story, where I was and what I'm doing today. So these are now, we also in the middle of writing a script, maybe the possibility of doing some kind of a show, TV show or something like that, with a script, writing it now. We just like I said, this is not my story, man. I couldn't dream this up, think about it, know it, but to be honest with you, back in my life, wanted that for me. But it's a God story. We want to just deliver a message of hope. Now, there's always different ways we could deliver a message of hope. But I believe through my story, people can see that it's never too late for a new beginning. You might be stuck someplace, but God, when you surrender your life to Him, He'll take you, bring you from there to here. It's kind of like a charcoal into a diamond. So I thank you for your time. Books are there, like I said, they're for donations, and you can do it. There's information about us. If you want to check us out on YouTube or something like that, we appreciate it. God bless you. We love you. Let's close with prayer. Heavenly Father,